Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Cafe. My name is Denis, and welcome to this last episode of the 6th season. Thank you so much for being with us throughout the season and for being with us tonight. As usual, I invite you to go check out the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram pages of Drumfills Cafe, to do some likes, and of course, to subscribe to those pages. Of course, I want you to check out the main page, the website, drumfillscafe.com, to check out the past seasons and everything that happened in this 6th season. So tonight, special guest for me anyways. I've been a fan of this band ever since they came out with Splendor Solace. Basically, I'm honored to receive tonight's guest. He's a member of a trio consisting of Jeff Martin, of course, Stuart Chatwood. That trio, of course, is the Tea Party. They have sold over, I believe, 3 million records, receiving 14 Juno Award nominations, 22 Much Music Awards nominations, and touring around the globe. My guest has also been part of the band Crash Karma, and dedicates his time to various charities, and he's, in my humble opinion, an amazing drummer and percussionist. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Jeff Burrows.
How you doing, Dennis?
I'm good. Thank you so much for saying yes to our invitation.
Oh, are you kidding? This is great. Appreciate it.
Cool. So, first question I got to ask, how was touring after COVID? It must have been such a good feeling.
You know what? It was a very big blessing. I mean, for all of its damage and the horrificness of what happened with COVID, those of us who came out of it healthy really, I think, took a step back and looked at themselves and looked at their lives and their circle of family and their circle of friends. And for us, as a band and as friends for decades, it was really nice because there's nothing like playing live. There's nothing like playing live under normal situations, but coming out of something that felt like it would never end. Much the same story with everyone, no matter what your passion was, and if you were limited to engage in it, it was just really tough. But once we hit the stage and the ball was rolling, and it was a different kind of tour. We didn't hop on a bus on one coast and make our way across the coast because it was summertime, and it was primarily festivals. I'd say 75-80% festivals.
Okay.
The guys came back to our hometown where I still live in LaSalle, Ontario, and we sort of hubbed. I'm at my house, of course, and they visited their families and so on, and we would spend time flying between Windsor and Montreal, or Windsor, Toronto, East Coast, and all the way to the West Coast. So it made for I don't want to say it was luxurious, but it was pretty nice not having to wake up in a bunk every day and getting able to come home every day to rest nicely and so on. So not every day, mind you. Like we did, I think it was the Montreal show, or specifically, or shows, where we did Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa, Kingston, etc. And that was the longest run within there, which was, I think, maybe amounted to 11 days. But it was hotels every night because you're 2-3 hours apart from each city. So it was very nice, and the crowd reaction and our reaction to each other, it was pretty fantastic, gotta say.
I guess you felt a lot of love basically for for doing shows and for people coming out.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, you always feel that. You really do. But this was exceptional. This was like, you always feel the love coming from the audience, and we try to give that much back. But even the love on stage, and just to see old friends that we haven't seen across the country, because you end up making friends around the world, let alone the country. And just to see some familiar faces and grab a drink or a coffee with people on, your days off and stuff, it was pretty nice.
Interesting. No, for sure. As a concert goer and as also a drummer, yeah, I can relate to what you're describing basically.
Uh,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure, for
yeah.
sure.
Felt good to shake off the cobwebs, I gotta tell
Let's go. Oh yes, I
you.
used to enjoy this. I remember this. Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. You can practice as much as you like at home, but
Yeah.
there's nothing more adrenaline fueled than
Mm,
when you're performing on stage. So it's a different animal regardless.
for sure, for sure. Um, Next question I got to ask basically is that you guys have been together, Tea Party, of course, for more than 30
Mhm.
years. I mean, congratulations, number
Yeah,
one.
thank
And
you.
what's the secret sauce? Because as we know, I'm sure you've been in multiple bands before Tea Party, and you've seen multiple bands sort of not make it that long. What is the
Hmm.
secret to you guys, basically?
Well, so Jeff and I started long, long ago in grade school, école élémentaire.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was in grade 7, he was in grade 6. So we were quite young. And then we met Stuart really in high school. So we've been in and out of bands for 40 plus years, really, or
Hmm.
40 years, I guess. So um, I guess, when you're young and things start taking off, like it happened for us, and we're very grateful for that, you're almost running on adrenaline. It's go go go,
Hmm.
and you can't wait to write that next song, and you can't wait to work on parts, and you can't wait to demo it, and so on and so forth. And then, like many friendships or marriages or whatnot, there's a bit of a lull, and regardless of how well you're doing on the road, you forget how to communicate, and
Hmm.
that did happen to us. So we sort of fell out of sorts for about 6 years.
Hmm.
Kept in touch, mind you, but it just didn't feel right. And then, as time got better and we got better amongst ourselves, you soon realize that communication is key, like any good relationship, any good business partnership, any good
Hmm.
friend partnership. So it's really, really about communication, and it's really about giving each other space. I mean, it's the type of friendship you like to have in your life where you don't find it necessary to have to call someone every other day and make sure
Hmm.
they're still your buddy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, I can go months. I don't care. You guys are cool. I'm fine.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
um, I think that's the key. It's the key to everything, really. Is don't be afraid to hurt anyone's feelings, because at the end of the day, you're not out to hurt anyone's feelings. Everyone realizes that what we're talking about is for the betterment of the group, and in order for us to create better and to perform better. And we came to realize that, and it helps quite a bit.
Well, and also you guys started in your 20s. I mean, to start in your 20s and then it's go 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 for I guess 10, 15 years. I mean, and then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it
yeah.
was it was I think it was about 18, 19 years
Mm.
of go go go. And from the very first time we jammed together as this unit,
Hmm.
the three of us, um, until I think the last show, I think it was with Def Leppard in Victoria, BC. Pardon me, before we took our break. So you need to reevaluate. You need to be able to remind yourself how blessed you are and how
Mm.
grateful you are in that situation, because not many people get this opportunity, and it doesn't fall upon my deaf ears. I wake up every morning and think, man, I've gotten to meet so many people that I admire, and so many fans who become friends, and the opportunity to travel, and so on.
Mhm.
It comes with its sacrifices, of course, but you know, starting that young and getting on the road, and we went across Canada 13 times in a van before you know we landed our contract. So it was
Okay.
more about building a repertoire and building the live show, and we're still all about that. No tracks, no clicks, no nothing. So
No, exactly. No, exactly. And that's refreshing in these days. But we'll talk about that
yeah.
a bit later. But yeah, no, what a whirlwind. Quickly, if you can take me back when you're that young and you hear your song on the radio, and everything's taken off. How is that feeling? How is that like?
So the first time we were super impressed or excited. We had finished a show in Toronto and we were heading back to our hometown in a van. So it was probably 3 in the morning, and we'd played Lee's Palace, and it was to a good crowd. It wasn't massive, and it was probably a Wednesday because we weren't a big thing yet.
Hmm.
But we heard ourselves on CFNY,
No.
so that was our first, Edge 102. I think his name was Joins. His last name is Joins, Hal or Al. But anyway, we heard that. That was a landmark for us, and it was very, very exciting. The second time was actually in Montreal,
Oh, cool.
and it was Shome's, I think it was top 8 at 8, and we were with our very good friend from Arena Rock at the time, Mitch Joel, who's a fantastic speaker. Now he's known the world around for his book 8 Pixels, and he took us to the base of the mountain. We were parked somewhere, and we're just listening to music and having a beer in his car. We had a night off, I guess,
Yeah.
and we just had Shom on, and it apparently was the top 8 at 8, and number 2 played, and we're not thinking about anything. We're just listening away. And, that was probably Pearl Jam or something at number 2 back in 1993, and all of a sudden we hear the drums intro for The River. We were like, what? We just looked at each other. And he looked at us and he said, "I knew this was happening. That's why I brought you here." And drinks followed. Many drinks followed that night, and it was so fun. And then the third time, I got to tell you, in Canada, it was also in La Belle Province,
Okay.
and I can't even tell you where we were. It would have been somewhere not random, but somewhere like Victoriaville or Rivière-du-Loup or something like that.
Okay.
And we had rolled in our van, and we were setting up our own gear, doing the whole thing. And we looked up at the TV screen, and they were playing the River video, which we hadn't seen the completed
Oh,
video
really?
at that
You didn't
point.
see it? Yeah, really? Wow.
Yeah. So for your younger viewers, there was no internet. So you couldn't check anything out. You couldn't send files for the band to check out and see how this edit looks and so on and so forth. It was a very different time, and you put your trust into those directors and producers. So there we were in Rivière-du-Loup and setting up for a little gig, and there we were on television, and we just were blown away. So those are the 3 big moments, at least in Canada, that I remember vividly, and obviously keep them here because I remember them like that. I exactly at the time.
Very cool. Well, as a fan back then, when I heard The River, I was blown away, honestly. And being,
Yeah.
one of those kids, one of those musician kids in high school, when we heard that song come out, we're like, holy crap, we got to try that. We got to jam that this weekend. And it wasn't
Yeah.
as easy as we thought. It wasn't.
Oh no.
It took
Yeah.
us a couple of tries to get it,
Yeah.
sort of okay.
Yeah. It was, what a
and-
time, I got to tell you.
Yeah. So no, that record really blew us away. So I can imagine what it would have been for you
awesome.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go just quickly through the catalog, because a couple of things that you guys have many influences, and I'm curious to pick your brain as to where they come from and why go there as opposed to in a different place and sort of thing. But
Yeah.
of course, the first record, Splendor Solace, is very 70s, very bluesy. It's very rock oriented. Very cool. One of my favorite.
Very,
records.
very, very Detroit. Very much where we came from.
Right, because you're
we're
across
from
the river.
Windsor. Yeah, we're south of Detroit in Canada. So that Journey song, Born and Raised in South Detroit, is actually talking about where we're from. And that's what that whole album is pretty much based upon, because we wrote that album above where we used to play all the time, called Coach and Horses, and we had a rehearsal space above it, and every Monday through Thursday, these older blues artists would come in from Detroit playing solo and just blow our minds, and we would cop riffs here and borrow that riff there, and it was fantastic. So that was album 1 for sure.
Cool. Very nice. But yes, and then we get to Edge of Twilight, and then all this Eastern influence comes in, and all these different
Hmm.
textures, and you start playing other percussions. Where does that come from? Was there sort of a mindset to go differently to what's going on at that time, or is this a natural progression basically towards
Uh,
your interest
I
toward?
think I think it's kind of a combination of both because we've always been very, very curious musically.
Hmm.
Um, we were conscious of the fact that we did not want to become pigeonholed in one particular genre
Hmm.
exactly. To use the most extreme version or what I'm talking about, ACDC is so good at ACDC.
Right.
And if ACDC derives from ACDC, it just doesn't sound like ACDC, or I don't think it would. I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear them cover a Bee Gees song. Who knows? But
With that voice, that would be amazing. Yeah.
so we were always obviously interested in everything the Beatles had done and
Mm-hmm.
everything the Stones had done and
Mm-hmm.
so on. And it just we were really into the band Dead Can Dance at the time as well.
Okay. Interesting.
So we just thought, how can we make something different? How can we improve upon what we did before? And it wasn't, we didn't set out to become this Moroccan roll band or
Mm-hmm.
whatever people want to call it. But it worked. And for us, especially as a three piece, it made it that much more exciting because there's room and there's time for drummers who are four on the floor and just keeping that fat, heavy backbeat.
Right.
And I like to play behind the beat, but I also like to be very busy. Not Neil Peart busy, because that's not the type of three or trio that we are, but
Mm-hmm.
busy enough that it's just not, boom chick, boom chick. I like to be, goblet drums and doumbeks and darabukas and the whole thing.
So therefore, once we started writing these songs and furthermore got into the studio, the really interesting part about this album, and a lot of people may not know, is we got to go to Los Angeles to record it. And Los Angeles, obviously, especially at the time, being the place where magic happens. That's when stores had stock of anything, any type of instrumentation. Now
Okay.
everything, again, for the young ones, Amazon can ship a darabuka to
Right.
you,
That's
a
true. That's
sitar
true.
to you the
Right.
next day. It Things just were not readily available. So when
Right.
we got to Los Angeles, we were at A&M Studios and the Voodoo Lounge. We were entering Studio A, which was the Voodoo Lounge, where the Stones had just finished recording that. So we're in the studio that the Stones were just in. And the
Wow.
second day we walked in, where we're going to start working on bits and especially bed tracks, there's Neil Young sitting in the lounge with his son
Okay.
having a coffee, and we're just blown away. He was there overseeing the mix of Mirror Ball that he had recorded with Pearl Jam.
Nice. Okay.
And here we are, this young band out of southwestern Ontario, and we
Mhm.
started chatting him up, and he thought, "Oh, you're from Canada? I'm from Canada." And we're like, "Oh, really?"
No, you don't say. Really.
You don't say.
I did not
I've
know
heard of
that.
you, sir. So that was
Yeah.
fantastic. I ended up meeting this gentleman by the name of Ross Garfield. He's known as the Drum Doctor in Los
Oh,
Angeles.
right. Yes, I think I know of him. Right.
You may, yeah, he's
Yeah.
quite reputable and very famous. And
He's the one
he
that has
did
that
a
warehouse with there's so many drums. And you can just come in and say, "I'll
uh,
take that snare and that
I'll
kit
borrow
and that."
that
Yeah.
Tommy Lee kit there or that Lars
Yeah.
Ulrich kit there. And
Right. Right.
so he ended up customizing a kit for me because I was always a Ludwig guy.
Hmm.
Um, and I had just beaten the crap out of these things because honestly, when you start, I didn't have money for cracked cymbals, let alone drum cases. So the
Hmm.
drums get really beat up. And by the time we went there, I thought, you know what? I'm going to use a kit that's there and see what happens because I thought maybe I could just get a really nice kit because we're in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so one of the studio personnel said, "Well, I've got the guy you got to meet." And they brought in Ross, and he built a custom Gretsch shell kit and I believe he used Sonar hardware on it,
Okay.
and it was fantastic. Like, I still have it. I store it at my friend's because I have too many drum kits at my house, and I use it for rehearsals when we rehearse for my charity band that we do.
Hmm.
But that was that time, and the opportunity to be in Los Angeles. You know, we were young. We stayed in an apartment style hotel, and I think I slept on the pull-out couch, and the guys took bedrooms. I didn't care; I could sleep anywhere. So, uh, and that was it. That was our life. You know, we'd be up at 8 in the morning, chomping at the bit, just to get into the studio
Hmm.
and start working. And the beautiful part about doing that record is that you had all of these toys accessible to you, and we were seeing, would this fit in this part, would this fit in this part, let's make it so that you need to be able to reproduce it
Live, yeah.
live.
Yeah,
That was our
exactly.
thing. So
Yeah.
idle hands were not present at the time, so we were all pretty busy on stage once that album was done.
You weren't doing dancing moves, I should say. You know.
No jazz hands.
Well, it seems to be a very important record in you guys' catalog, because you celebrated, I think, that 20th anniversary tour and everything, and it's,
Yeah.
it sparked a lot of, the Bazaar, Sister Awake, all these
Mm.
songs that you're still playing to this day, basically. So it's
Yeah,
yeah.
love it. Love it.
And then left turn again for the next one, where basically
Yeah.
we're adding electronica. So is it sort of a? I heard Peart back in the day say we are a sponge and we do sort of absorb what's going on around us, and electronica was very big that back then. Is it that case, or just you guys wanted to go another different direction?
Well, I'm definitely sure we were influenced by what was going on around us, but what we were even more influenced. And so, as I mentioned earlier, harkening back to the Beatles and the Stones, that was grade school, early high school, middle high school, senior high school became more of a Joy Division, New Order style, new wave or dark wave music. And at the time, in '96, when we were starting to write this, Nine Inch Nails obviously were quite prevalent, and so
Yeah,
on
they
and
were
so forth.
great. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it just made sense for us. And again, we didn't treat it or use it as a crutch. Anything that we
Hmm.
did was performed by
Hmm.
us. So if we wouldn't run a loop, I would be playing it. So everything
Right.
transmission is played. Everything temptation was played. If I had
Hmm.
to add a trigger onto my snare, we did that. But at least it was played. You weren't hearing the drums out front acoustically with an electronic style snare hitting on the twos and fours
Right.
digitally. It was me actually striking the kit, and
Right.
of course the introduction to the Roland SPDX pads for me. So it just made things that much more interesting, and it was another way for the band really to expand, because during the Edges touring, Stuart, we were finally into a tour bus at that time, and that's another set of baggage. But you finally get into a tour bus, and again, it's long drives, and it can be
Hmm.
quite boring, and so
Hmm.
on. And Stuart has always been a very technically apt human being, incredibly smart, very intelligent. Always wanting to learn about things. He'd take things apart and so on as a kid. So
Okay. Okay.
he started playing keyboard excessively. He was learning correspondences while we were writing it on
Mm.
piano. But then once we got on the road for Edges, he would hit the back lounge and just start working on different sounds on the keyboard, learning piano parts, learning parts that would go well with synth bits, getting his feet warmed up to play bass and bass
Right.
pedals at the same
Bass person.
time.
Yeah.
So, it was a very exciting time. And again, back to where we just did not want to have boredom on stage. Although I look for it sometimes now because I'm exhausted after song 4. It's like, can we play Release right here? It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
but it worked out to our advantage because, again, much success with that record. Did not have to pigeonhole ourselves into recreating Edges 2 or anything of that matter.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it kept us busy. It kept us active. It kept us not only, I mean, it ends up becoming muscle memory regardless. And
Right,
you as a
right.
drummer and as drummers out there would know, the more you're performing, the more you think, the worse it is. You do not want to think while you're performing. It
No,
should be memory, and there's
yeah,
room for hints of experimentation and
right.
jazzy bits and experiences, but you know the form. I don't try to recreate every fill. Some that are
Hmm.
parts of songs you have to, like the intro to Temptation or parts of Sister Wick, but you
Hmm.
we have that free flow going, and if you think too much, you kind of lose that honesty, I think.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you. One of my best advice I had from one of my profs from McGill was like, if you're thinking, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and
You're in
that's
trouble. If you're
so
going,
that
if you're going, where am I? You're in trouble. Don't
yeah.
mess with it.
Or yeah, what does this feel? What does this feel? Oh no, I'm gonna fall behind. I'm falling behind.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the one thing that happens with the Tea Party where we do have to think and you have to get over it really quick is when we perform with symphonies, and we have one of those coming up. So
Right.
I've
Right.
already started listening to a bootleg from Montreal, as a matter of fact, of us with the symphony, because all of the music that's been transposed for all of the orchestras that we've performed with are written and obviously etched in stone, and you can't derive from those parts. But they were written at the time how we played the songs then. Well,
Hmm.
songs evolve over time,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
jam parts evolve all the time. Like
Hmm.
literally by the night with the Tea Party. I mean, we're not the Grateful Dead or Fish, but
No,
you
but there's
know,
improvisation.
there's
Yeah.
there's certain parts where there's a
Yeah.
song. Is Jeff going to go off here? Yeah, he's going off. Let's follow. Let's have fun, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But when you're playing with the symphony and you don't have many rehearsals, and that happens sometimes, just the way promoters book shows and don't get us to the Australia on time or whatever, it's like,
Right. Right. Right.
man, 2 rehearsals and now we're supposed to just be loose, and you get headaches. It's great when you finish it and oh god, we got through that. But
Yeah.
it's sure nice when you don't have to really think about it,
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
prepping quite early this year for our couple shows.
Well, quickly, when you're on the subject, what is your preparation for a show like that? Basically, is it a lot
Well,
of?
so I just hadn't really had access to those songs recorded before,
Mm,
and when we announced the two upcoming symphony shows, someone had posted online the Tea Party with the Montreal Symphony Orchestra when we played the Bell Center
mhm.
20 years ago. And I thought, oh, I've never seen this. I immediately grabbed it and I sent it on the band thread on text. I'm like, guys, look what I found. This is amazing. So just literally listening to it all the time and kind of
Yeah.
ingraining it in my head. No, we're not jamming here. We go straight into the verse, right back into the verse, right into. So, and then now we're being afforded, because it's so close to home.
Mm.
I think we have 3 rehearsals on our own, a production rehearsal, then 2 rehearsals with the orchestra. So we'll be fine. I won't have to think.
I wish it upon you, but yes, exactly. I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah,
Moving along quickly to the catalog, a few two more. So, basically,
yeah.
Interzone Mantras. That one seems more. It's like a mix of all of everything, and it seems more raw.
Hmm.
It seems more, and I hope I have this quote correctly, but Jeff is praising you on this record, saying basically Jeff Burrows is proclaimed basically the best rock drummer going, who did everything drum tracks in one take, and he was amazed by your playing. So can you talk a bit about that record?
Yeah. Well, we had a little bit more time. Get So I think that came after. Um, Gosh, I don't know. It came after
Uh,
one of those.
the
What,
triptych, I
what,
think. Yeah,
It came after Triptych,
yeah.
and it was at that point after Triptych where we had mutually decided that, you know what, we've been going hard for 10 years. Let's just slow it down and honestly take 3 months off.
Mm.
And
It's just
that was rare,
yeah.
very rare.
Mm.
And I think it gave me more time because we had been working on demos and writing and sound checks and on the bus and jamming here and there while we're on the road touring the other albums. So it just, it allowed you to get loose. And then I really like it when we're able to rehearse it, like write it together, rehearse it together, throw together demos that are just horrible drumming and horrible parts.
Okay.
And I can take them home and I
Right.
can write to them. So
Right.
we'll write a song and I'll be working on fills and parts and so on and so forth. But then when we come to demo it, I'll literally play as four on the floor as I possibly can.
Okay. Okay.
Because at
Interesting.
least I can follow where we're going. Okay, now it's back into the verse. Oh, we're going to extend this bridge oddly for another 3 bars, which makes no
Okay.
sense, but we're going to do it anyway.
Right.
And so it allows me to work on this fill, that fill, coming out, pushing, pulling, that sort of thing. And then when you get the vocal vibe in there, even if it's just la la la's before Jeff may have finished the lyrics, it allows you to pull back on certain things within reason and push some things when you have to push them. So that is my ultimate favorite way and to go about the process. And we were able to do that for that record because we had enough time
Mm.
we were afforded that luxury of time,
Right.
I guess.
Right.
And I thought it was great, you know. And I had little kids at home at the time, so I'd go
Oh.
downstairs and bang on the drums, and Mom would have their big noise canceling phones on,
Yeah,
and they'd just be like looking at Dad in their diapers, just rocking out. You know?
That's so
Pretty
cute. That's
funny.
amazing. Well, yeah. Well, you just touched on something because I'm always curious to see how, especially you, because you seem to be sort of a composer drummer or sort of a a
Mm.
song drummer,
Mhm.
with the occasional flourishes here and there, as you pointed out, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting what you just said. Is basically you won't think of the part right away. You'll think more of the song and then think of your parts afterwards. Is what you're discussing.
Well, and I mean, that's a very jazz thing to do. I suppose as a composer, if you're writing for a symphony, that's what you would do for percussion because it has certain parts that need to be there. But I think like if you look at the history of 3-piece bands, I think drums have to be a 1/3 component of it.
Mm,
From the Police to Rush to Triumph to
mhm.
Jimi Hendrix. I mean, it has to be all for one, one for all. There are moments that shine for the guitar player, for the vocalist, keyboard player, bass player, but it has to all fit. And as a 3-piece, it again with the word luxury, it is a luxury to be able to be be busy, but not over busy. It has to
No,
fit the
exactly.
song,
Yeah, no,
and
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, you nailed it.
Oh, good. And then quickly, what you recorded last year, Sun Shower, an EP.
Mm,
Basically, love Summertime, by the way. It's so catchy. I love that song.
thanks, man. It's a fun song.
And yeah, so was that recorded during COVID, pre-COVID? How did that work out for you guys?
So long before COVID, say 2 years before COVID, we were working on what was an album. And what ended up happening is it's very difficult for the band to get together. Jeff lives on the east coast of Australia. Stuart
Oh,
lives
wow.
in British
Okay, I didn't know.
Columbia,
Okay, I didn't know
and just outside of Vancouver. Yeah, and I'm here in southwestern Ontario still. So we had been at Jeff's doing initial writing in Australia, and that was probably attached to a tour. So most of our writing sessions end up being attached to a tour. Whether it's
that.
if
Okay.
we're heading to Australia for a tour, we'll go ahead 2 weeks to either start demoing the ideas that we'd already worked on or start from scratch. Then post tour, we'll spend another week or so at least getting down, the four on the floor dumb drums, just so that everybody's got something to follow and I can start working on parts and etc. So we had come into that session thinking that we're going to meet up again and start writing the next one. So by the time things started chugging along, and then we met in Vancouver because we were
Hmm.
starting another tour in Canada, and Stuart's
Hmm.
in Vancouver, so it's perfect. And we did all the drums and drums for other songs that we hadn't really even quite worked on.
Okay.
which eventually became the Sun Shower EP. So we had the rough ideas for the songs, and the drums. I was pretty happy because these songs, they weren't crazy out there. I got some nice licks and it was fun, but it wasn't extremely. Another drummer listening, didn't really have to listen to crazy parts or anything. So what turned into two EPs was originally going to be an album.
Okay,
So
I
he
didn't
ended
know.
up with.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever told anyone that. So there you go. You scooped it.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Well, it's refreshing. I love it. I listened to it, some this weekend, and it's really good. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
This is a drum podcast. I know my audience would sort of kill me if I didn't ask you specific drum questions, and
Yeah.
for us to geek out, if you will. So first off, equipment. You've been a user of DW and Sabian. What is it about those companies? What do you like? What is it?
So Sabian, I started playing when I was a teenager, and like I mentioned earlier, I was using whatever I could use, and you didn't have money back in the day. And we weren't making money as a band, and you get cracked cymbals and this, that, and whatnot. Once the first album was done, I literally took pen to paper and wrote Billy Zildjian, who was Sabian on the East Coast, and a letter. Said, "Hi, this is who I am. We just signed a deal with these guys. I'm not looking for, anything big. I would just love it if I could, rep the company, and could I get some cymbals? I've been using them for a long time, ever since I heard whatever recording Phil Collins had done recently."
Exactly, yeah.
And he wrote me back and he said, "It'd be a pleasure to have you on board." And
Wow.
I got to meet everyone, and that was that. And drum wise, going back, like I said, I was always a Ludwig guy. And Ludwig kind of took a bit of a dip for late 80s or early 90s.
No, that's true. Right.
And it was really weird, and there wasn't a lot going into them. I thought, and then, as I mentioned, I got the Ross Garfield Gretsch kit, which was great, but it didn't obviously travel well when you're going to Europe and Australia and New Zealand and America.
Because you got to bring it with you over there, and there's cost of bringing it and all that stuff.
The cost of bringing.
Yeah.
So when I saw DWs, and I had played a couple DWs higher kits when we were in Europe, I thought, man, these drums are the shit. Like, holy smoke. I got back, and we were with SRO Management at the time, who managed Rush for their entire career. We were with them for 21 years, and I just mentioned it to our manager, our day-to-day manager, and he said, "Oh, well, let me contact Garrison at DW on the West Coast." And Garrison called me that day, said, "Jeff, we'd love to have you on board. You guys got 2 solid records under your belt."
Amazing.
Blah, blah, blah. And there we are. That was my black satin oil finished drums, and I got gold hardware on them. This was in 1999 for the Triptych record.
Right.
And I still have that kit. I've lent that kit out to many drummers.
Really? Okay.
And for recording, Big Rex album. Ian Thornley had one record come out, and I had played with Ian for about 18 shows right before the Tea Party got back together. He was out of a drummer, and I said, of course, I'd love to help him. He's been a great buddy for many years. So I did a few shows with him, and once I went back to the Tea Party and the Crash Karma were still playing at the same time.
Okay.
He said, "JB, can I borrow those drums? My new guy's good and all, but these drums sound like shit." I'm like, "No worries, man." So my drums started on a couple Big Wreck and Thornley
Nice,
records,
very nice.
and,
Cool.
And so since then, I've got the black satin oil, I've got a tobacco burst, I've got an acrylic kit, and now my dad, who's also a drummer, still is, but was a great rock and roll drummer. He's always been a Ludwig guy, and that's probably obviously why I got into them initially. Yeah. But he's gotten me into a a classic and antique snare addiction,
How?
which isn't bad for my health,
No,
bad for
exactly.
my
Yeah,
pocketbook,
yeah.
but
Maybe for
the
the
pocketbook.
yeah.
But so he's very good with his hands.
Mm,
He's a retired lawyer, police
okay.
officer, but he's always been a drummer, and he's also a carpenter. So he cuts edges for drummers for free,
Oh,
and
nice.
does all of this stuff.
Okay.
Refurbishes. He's got snare drums from the 20s, 30s,
Oh,
40s,
wow.
50s, 60s, all the way up. And
Okay.
now he's gotten me into it, and I've got superphonics and acrylites and 1960 this
Mm,
and 1968
mm.
that, and so I love it because it's fantastic. He redid my birth year, 1968, redid all to spec, all 1968 hardware birthday drum kit for me for my 50th.
Wow.
And I was flabbergasted because he's so good with his hands, and everything is original. You hear
Wow.
this drum kit and it's so punchy, even compared to modern kits.
Really?
There's nothing that sounds like them. So it's really great. I use that one. That one specifically is for when I play. I do a drum marathon for charity
Right.
every
We got
year
to talk
for
about that.
24
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's specific for that purposely, and
Amazing.
other little gigs around town that I don't really need to mic them up or anything because they sound so glorious.
Yeah. I mean, they should have some. If they're that punchy, yeah, you don't bring them to a cafe gig, I imagine, or something like this. Yeah.
No, just take it easy. Bring those blast sticks.
Exactly. I hope you don't mind compliments, but I'm going to compliment you for the next 7 minutes or so. But
Oh,
there's some
geez.
there's some drum tracks you've done which I think I mean I believe you're underrated drummer in terms of like just your style and what you play. And there's some drum tracks
Well,
you've done
thank you.
with Tea Party I think are just amazing. Starting of course
Thank you.
with the river. I mean it's simple but it's so effective and it's so melodic and it works so well with that song. As
Mm.
how did you come up? You said I'm going to go for the tom floor here for that part and then bring it up
Uh,
and
I just when we started jamming it, of course, it didn't start on a floor tom, and it was just such a bottom heavy bass part that it just sounded weird to me with hats
mm,
in the beginning, and I thought it's almost this wallowing in a mire, sort of flooded
heavy,
out
yeah, yeah,
basement heaviness, right?
right.
So I just took to the 18-inch floor tom and started beating the shit out of it. Um, and then the parts just became the parts. I I've always drawn inspiration from the obvious Neil Peart,
Mm,
John Bonham, Stuart Copeland. Those are the obvious ones,
mm.
but there's a lot of jazz influences as well. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a band where the guys allow us, or we allow each other to wear our influences.
Yeah, because just in that song, there's a
So
part where you just pre-chorus, you're all hitting together, da, 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 and you're doing all these
yeah,
triplets and
and
that sort of thing. So, which is
yeah,
not very
you
common.
didn't really hear,
That yeah, that stuff.
no, the quarter note
Yeah,
triplet stuff, and putting those in the middle of
yeah,
fills, and the band would exponentially go up the scale with them. It and I don't know, it just, again, it made things very, very interesting. But we always tried to keep it first interesting for us, but not so interesting that it would turn off the audience you're trying to turn on, right?
mm.
So that's how that one came about, and then in the end, it's just
Yeah,
bombastic.
yeah.
It's
It's
just ba 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 ba.
it was it was
Keep you
it was
busy.
fun to play when I was about 16, 15 in my parents'
Yeah,
basement when
yeah.
it came out. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
yeah. Lucky you. I couldn't play that when I was 15.
Well, I said I played it. I didn't. I'm not sure if I had it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I had fun doing it anyways. Um,
Yeah.
but okay, no, interesting. No, so yes, and I'm going to use more examples, but I think in the end, it goes to what you are, which is more of a composer, sort of songwriter, drummer,
Yeah.
than basically
Yeah.
a fills guy or a flashy guy, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice to be that. And it's nice to be a part of the team.
Mm,
I like being a part of a
mm,
band, a group, a team, a group of
mm.
artists, sort of thing. So,
So next one is the Bazaar drum
mhm.
parts. I love that song. what are you playing at the start? What is it? Is it the percussive drum, for instance, for this
Oh,
question?
that's just Doombecks.
Okay.
A Doombeck and a Darabuka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one was a fish skin and the other was a plastic skin head.
Okay. Okay. So that's the first question, and the other
Yeah.
one is that just the groove of that song, and your foot is so busy, and you're doing
So
all this sort of paradiddle
yeah,
stuff, and then you're climbing to a
yeah,
different feel in the choruses, and it's very interesting. So
yeah. So that one came about because normally, I mean, bass players and drummers are like that,
mhm.
right? Obviously. But for that one, Jeff and I were sitting and he was playing it. It wasn't a bouzouki. It might have been a tar from Istanbul,
Okay,
but it was ding 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 ding
right,
and I'm like, man, that's really busy. Am I just going to be
right,
which
right.
could be really cool.
Just the feet,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
but you know what I mean? But then I thought, well, if Stewart's going to be holding down the bottom, he's not going to be that busy, like sort of thing.
hmm
So I was just like that dude, starting it, ba 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 ba, and I thought, can we do that? Can I come in with a snare instead of so that
yeah.
ba
It's sort of the one exactly.
as I'm playing
Yeah, right,
instead of ga 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 ga,
right, right.
and it was just very odd. So, and even Stuart Chatwood would mention the fact that one of the nicer parts about playing in the band is that as bass players and drummers do, we lock, but on more than one occasion on each album, it's more drums and guitar that are locking, and he gets to hold down the bottom.
Right,
And the
right, right.
beautiful part about him holding the bottom is he can be up in the register on the neck, but he's feeling the bottom with his feet on the bass pedals. So there's honestly never any idle hands or idle
hmm
feet
hmm
while we're performing. And I loved the way that song came together. I remember actually first starting to play that song, and it was a long time ago. And the more indigenous sounds and instrumentation, percussion especially, it was just so much fun. We ended up doing Ed Stasium, who co-produced that record in Los Angeles. He had done the Ramones and Living Colour, all of these great
Oh,
bands,
very nice.
and he taught me what is called an African rhythm wheel. So it's if you're shaking, it's like, and they're in your beat would go 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and it would flow throughout the song. And you can change how many times you want to do it. Actually, you can just go 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, and you end up with these really strange hits coming in and out
In
of
and
the
out of the.
standard rhythm
Okay.
on your hats, right?
Right, right, right.
So I use that quite a bit. I use that quite a bit still. I mean, we record Christmas albums with my charity band every year, and I'll do it with the sleigh bells just to change things up because it's something very interesting.
Good.
So remember that the rhythm wheel I thought was fantastic.
I'll
So
check
we
that
use
out.
that quite a bit,
Okay.
and different shakers, Native American Indian shakers. From everywhere, all over the world. So,
Mm.
and then the breakdown was great because it allowed me to, get back into the Doombeck parts and so on.
hmm
So,
hmm
very, very fun track to play and to write.
No, for sure, and it's still a staple to this day, basically in your set. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Can't play.
Moving on, I got two. I got about two. Well, about two, three more, and then we'll talk about the charities. Um,
Yeah.
Talking to Babylon. So Babylon is very electronic, and
Yeah.
I'm curious as you play that SPDX or whatever. Do you have a pedal
hmm
at the bottom to play the kick stuff? Because I
Oh,
see, I
definitely.
was
Yeah.
watching you live, and I can see you play the hi-hat and the snare parts, sort of thing. And as you
Yeah.
said, you don't. There's no backtrack, so you're playing everything, which is very cool. But I was like, how does he do
Yeah.
the kick thing? Is it a trigger or is it? So that's my
Oh yeah.
first technical
There's a
question.
there's a there's a kick pedal directly underneath of my first floor to the right.
Okay,
So, Temptation, Babylon,
Babylon.
Psychopomp, Transmission, a bit, couple others. We'll use it for that, or I'll use it for percussion. So if we're doing a quasi acoustic set, whereas I'm actually playing electronics, but we break them down and use the electronics for those sounds. That will be sometimes triggered as a djembe, so more of a boom, as opposed to an electronic kick sound or that fat Babylon. Well, the Babylon kick isn't fat, but that one note that will hit that goes boom. That's me hitting another pad. That one was a lot of fun. I mean, it's not overly creative, that's for sure, but it's fun to play because you're doing the really fast bits, and then it's just like gotta boom,
and it's just a fat groove,
fat and heavy.
and you're not really playing 2/4. You're just sort of syncopating the snare all the time as you're playing that song. So
yeah. So again, it's all about keeping busy and all about incorporating different styles, different types of instrumentation, from electronic to indigenous to, skins and things made of wood. It's all there,
And something more recent, the Black Sea from the ocean at the end, where you're basically playing sort of a 12/8 groove, I believe, and you're having fun with your left hand is doing all these fills, and there's these colors to it, which is very cool. And you seem, that record, you seem more free, if I can say that. You seem to be more enjoying yourself in that record.
It's more, that one's more loose. I mean, we got back together. We had lots of time to write it. That pattern kind of lifted from a Matt Cameron Soundgarden early, was it Rusty Cage? I don't know, but more like you'll hear the accents on the bell, and then Matt is so notorious for left hand spikes on the hats, and then doubling up, and again, another fun busy part that once you don't have to think about it is just a riot to play, and you always see 2 or 3 drummers in the front row going, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. It's not quite the Neil Peart.
No, the whole
at a Rush show, but
which I'm guilty of as well, I must admit. And I was a kid.
Oh, everyone has. If you haven't done that, you've never lived. And your time is up now. So sorry.
But I really love that one because again, you seem to be just so free and so just enjoying yourself on that track, and yet it never really. It's not for it's not for flash. It really is for the song, and that's what I. It's
a very fluid part. You know what I mean? It's got its yo ho ho pirate sort of, and that's where you get to catch your breath, and then when you get back into it, it's it's exciting and it's just beautiful to play. It's a lot of fun. We should really do that one again.
Oh, just talk to your friends and
thank you.
It's a good song. It's a really good song. There's a lot of songs, and I'll end on this one because honestly, I could have chosen like 12 songs from your catalog to talk about, but we'll stay. The one I've tried and I've played and I've had fun, but I think I have it down, is "Save Me." It's interesting that people don't realize how complicated that part is because it's basically a linear groove, which you're playing between your rim shot, your rim, your snare, which, by the way, I believe, and this is me really geeking out, I'm sorry, but playing the middle part and then playing the side of the beater to have a sort of a different note while your kick is doing...
Boom. Boom, boom. Yeah.
While you're playing the kick,
it's a triplet. Yeah. So boom, boom, bat, boom, boom, bat, boom, boom, bat, and then you start inserting your flams, and then the more you play it, the more it changes, and then the more you end up doubling your snare with your left to free up your right hand to do sprinkly bits on cymbals and floor toms, etc. But Sade's Sweetest Taboo.
Really?
If you listen to that song, you might get an idea of where that came from.
Really?
So,
I would have never made the connection.
Yeah.
Would have never made the connection.
Very close, but I rock it and I changed it, and I didn't mean I rock it as like I killed it. I mean I rock it up. And you know what? I remember that song when we were younger, when we were performing it live, and don't think I think the independent album was out, which that was on,
Okay. Right.
but we hadn't taken that song to the next level, which it ended up being on Splendor Solace. But I remember you were always playing smaller clubs, and at most you would have a kick and snare mic, right?
Right.
And then that's the way it used to be, kids. and and then when we got, I think it was our first show ever, perhaps at Lee's Palace in Toronto on Bloor Street, very world-renowned, reputable place. Everything was mic'd, and I had this massive monitor wedge, which I had never had.
Right.
You get quite used to
Hearing yourself.
very loud at the time, myself, Marshall stacks to my left, Fender cabs to the right, and you just adjust. But the first time I heard Save Me, that I could actually hear myself playing it, and how, because you don't hear yourself, you don't hear what it sounds like out front. And I thought, man, this is killer. I'm going to start throwing in tom bits and so on and so forth. So if you listen to the difference between the independent album and Splendor Solace and how that song evolved, it was because of performing it live, and specifically that show at Lee's Palace. I remember, wow, we can really change this. We can really make this big, and that's how that song evolved.
But very quickly, but thank you for that story. That's really cool. But that's what I find interesting is it's a simple idea. It's just a triplet, but you're orchestrating it. You're using the entire kit as if it's like a percussive instrument.
And I took tabla lessons, about 5 of them, just for basics. And of course, I bastardized them. And forgive me to all the tabla players, the real masters out there. But we would play that song acoustically, and I would play it on tabla. But when we recorded it, I also played tabla. So if you're hearing, small water drop style percussion in the background, that's the tabla underneath of the kick and the snare, or on top of the kick and the snare.
Okay.
So if you listen closely, you can hear it quite a bit.
Interesting. I would have known that. But I think every drummer should try that one, because honestly, it looks easy, but it's not that easy. And it's so melodic, and it fits so well the song. I personally think so.
Yeah. It's very different because it doesn't. It's so unusual. You have to get into a completely different style of flow. You're playing a rock song, then you're playing another rock song, and no matter the types of fills or this, that, whatever in it, it's still a rock song. Whereas this one is just so different and so organic, I guess you could say.
So I invite everyone out there to the community, check out that song. Seriously, it's wow. If I must say something.
Oh, do videos and show me how to do it for real. That's what I'm requesting.
There you go. Send your videos.
Kill it and throw your own stuff in there, and let me know.
Save your videos and do save me and send it to Jeff. He'll give you some pointers or whatever. Last 10 minutes. I thank you so much for all this time. It's going by so fast.
Yeah.
So quickly, you had, of course, other experiences. You had basically Crash Karma. You had the Big Dirty Band. Quickly with Big Dirty Band, I mean, it must have been fun just to play with Alex and Getty and all those guys.
Are you kidding?
I mean, I'm sure there's many drummers in Canada who went, "What? I'd love to be you."
Yeah. Why not me? Why can't I do it? See, it pays to have the same manager. But when I got that call, I was in BC at the time visiting my mom with my family, and I thought, oh, right on. Yeah. And I ended up having to come home early, but obviously great reasons. And I had already met Al and Ged quite a few times before that, so we were pretty chummy. But being in a studio, and it was Al's studio, so he's done records there. It's essentially their rehearsal, but it's a studio. It's not like somebody's basement in an undisclosed location. But we were all in there. I was in there. Ian Thornley was in there. Adam Gontier was in there. It was just a bunch of us. And oh my God, it was just, I'm playing the drums and I knew the parts, but I told Al, I said, when we get to this certain part, and I think it's the breakdown, and Getty's doing
this little Getty
thing, he's doing his Getty thing. And I said, I'm going to break it down, but I'm going to put in this odd feel signature. And I just want you to see how it feels. I'm not married to it, and obviously you're producing it, so let me know what you think. And at first he was like, I don't really get it. And then he pulled up Getty's, I don't even think it was his tracer track. I think it was just him fiddling around, and I'm like, this would fit perfect now with that. And then he just literally notched it up on the board. He's like, oh no, this fits really cool.
Nice.
So it felt really amazing to be a part of that. And then once I was done, I was so relieved. I'm 2 hours on Neil Peart's practice kit behind glass, and his practice kit was literally like my normal kit, right?
Right.
So just the one tom and the 2 floors and a bunch of cymbals. So I finished, and I'm just sitting there, and I was sweating. I'm like, oh my God. I've only got a few pictures. I wish I had video of that time, but I was so excited and so relieved that I didn't screw it up horribly. And I remember having a beer and just sitting back and listening to Al and listening to his engineer and everybody in there. And they're like, yeah, this is going to be fun. And what a day. What an incredible day and an opportunity that I'll never forget.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, from all of us, good job.
Anyone else could have did it too, to be honest. It's not a crazy song, but I was not going to say no. So.
Honestly, it's a great song, and I invite people to go check it out. It's the Big Dirty Band and the song is called "I Fought the Law," and it's really cool. It's really cool to see all you guys.
It's
having fun.
It was for the Trailer Park Boys movie.
Right.
That's what it was for. So.
Yeah. And lastly, you. Besides all the music and all this stuff, of course, you do charities, and you do. It's very important to you to do charities and to give back to community, which I think is amazing. When I heard about this 24-hour marathon thing, I was like, what? What? Like 24 hours? What, of drum solos? What is this? And then I got to know basically, yes, it's very interesting because you bring a bunch of talents that come like every hour and you play with them, and it's for a good cause. So quickly, could you just explain to us what that is?
Yeah, it started, I think this is going to be my 18th year coming up in May of 23. So it is going to be 18, 19, and 20, and that'll be that. Then I'm going to move on to something else. But essentially what it is we kick off at midnight, and I go till the following midnight, and I usually get a 5-minute, we call it a bathroom break / water break / whatever, because and I kind of planned it that way because I thought to myself, it's going to be pretty difficult to go non-stop, and I don't want to kill myself. I just wanted to raise some money and bring attention to the certain causes that we're raising monies for. So that 5 minutes is wonderful because that gives everyone enough time to get off stage. Next solo or duo or small band comes on, and then their friends and families and fans show up, and we do it until midnight, and we usually raise quite a bit of money. The last few years, we've raised over $60,000 each year. So
very cool.
So we're hoping to get on to perhaps $100,000 a year for the next 3 years, and that'll wrap up 20 years of the 24-hour drum marathon. And then I'm going to look into something else. It's going to be 24 hours, but I think I'm going to be more like, when Dean Martin used to host things, or no, who was, he was super popular in
Jerry
France.
Lewis, you mean?
Yeah, Jerry Lewis, not Jerry Lee, but Jerry Lewis. I'm going to do the Jerry Lewis thing.
Right.
Yeah. Where I come out on the microphone and, hey, how's it going? The variety show. And then I go grab a nap in the back. And so, I look forward to doing something completely different, but it'll be worthwhile, and we'll get back to the community. So.
Very cool. And quickly, when you're going to do it this year, next year, I should say, can people from afar donate? Is there a link? I imagine they can donate.
Oh yeah, I usually, I'll set up a link. I'll set up a fundraiser on Facebook. I'll set up a fundraiser via the Canadian Mental Health Association website, and it's shared on all my socials. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook accounts, and so on. So yeah, it's simple.
Perfect. And if you're interested to know what it is, I invite you. Jeff has got, I think it's last year's edition that was on the web, basically, like in 4 parts. So
it might have been the year before, just because it was COVID time, and one year I had to only do 12 hours because we weren't allowed people in the room for X amount of time, and it was a big mess. COVID ruined a lot of things, but we're back to normal. So
cool. So you can check that out, and yes, I implore you to check that out. And I think that'll be it for today. I mean, I'm so appreciative of your time, Jeff. And
Oh, my pleasure.
can you just basically tell us where they can reach you, or where basically they can see you for Tea Party? I think the next one is in February for the orchestra for the next show.
Yeah, we have two orchestra shows. One is sold out in Sarnia. That was a second added show, and then there's a show in Windsor, our hometown, that we're hopefully recording both
Oh, nice,
audio and video
nice.
for, and that's at Caesars Windsor. So that's a big, beautiful room. And after that, I can expect summer, early fall in Canada, and in between we'll have things elsewhere. I'm imagining. And yeah, on socials, I'm usually at Burrows Drums, so my last name with drums attached to it, and that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. As the little 15-year-old in me is very appreciative of your time, because I'm a huge fan, and I've been following you guys forever since. And I'm hoping to catch you. I missed you this summer, unfortunately. I was myself sort of touring, but I hope to catch you in next time around,
Yeah,
maybe back to Montreal. J'espère de vous
any,
voir en
anytime.
spectacle.
Oui, je vous remercie. Merci bien.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All the best to you, and
Thank you very much,
see you
Dennis.
soon.
Take care.
So there's our episode. There's the last episode of the season. Thank you so much for being with us for the whole season. And that's pretty much it. I wish you the whole best for Christmas and the holidays. Come back next year, 2023, for a new Drumfills Cafe season. Until then, all the best to you. And, well, see you next year. Ciao.